If you've ever felt like you were doing everything right, texting consistently, showing interest, being available, and still watched her slowly lose interest, then you've already experienced this reality firsthand. You didn't lose her because you weren't enough. You lost her because you revealed too much, too soon, with no tension, no mystery, no restraint. Most men don't lose women because they're unattractive. They lose them because they're predictable, emotionally exposed, and easy to read. And the painful truth is this: she can feel that within minutes of being around you. Not because she's analyzing you logically, but because attraction is not logical. It's emotional, instinctive, and deeply psychological. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. When you can remain calm and unreactive, when you can observe without being controlled, you are exercising the kind of self-control that creates attraction. Not because you're trying to impress her, but because you're not easy to move. What most men don't understand is that desire doesn't grow in comfort. It grows in uncertainty. It grows in emotional tension. It grows in the space between what is felt and what is fully known. And the moment you remove that space, by over-explaining, over-giving, or over-chasing, you collapse the very thing that creates attraction in the first place. This is where most men fail. They think attraction is built by proving value. But attraction is not built by proof. It is built by perception. And perception is shaped by what you reveal. And more importantly, what you don't. She doesn't want everything handed to her. She doesn't want a man she can completely figure out in one conversation. She doesn't want a man who is always available, always agreeable, always predictable. That kind of energy feels safe, but it doesn't feel exciting. And without excitement, there is no desire. Without desire, there is no emotional investment. And without emotional investment, she will slowly detach, even if she can't explain why. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When your thoughts are consumed by trying to please her, your soul reflects that. You become anxious, reactive, and easily controlled. But when you release that attachment, when you focus on your own center, you become someone she cannot fully predict. And that unpredictability is what keeps her engaged. So when you ask, what should I do so she wants me without me asking? The answer is not something flashy or complicated. It's something subtle, something controlled, something most men are too impatient or too insecure to do. You stop trying to be chosen, and you become selective. That shift alone changes everything, because the moment you stop seeking validation from her, she begins to feel the absence of it, and that absence creates tension. That tension creates curiosity, and curiosity is the beginning of desire. Understand this clearly. Women are not drawn to men who need them. They are drawn to men who can walk away from them without emotional collapse. That doesn't mean you become cold or distant. It means your emotional state is not dependent on her reactions. You don't rise when she gives attention, and you don't fall when she withdraws it. You remain centered, and that centeredness is what she feels. Most men panic when a woman pulls away. They double text. They try to fix things. They ask questions. They seek reassurance. But what they don't realize is that this reaction exposes their internal state. It shows that they are not in control. And once she senses that, something shifts. Not consciously, but instinctively. Her attraction begins to fade because she no longer feels the strength she was initially drawn to. But when you do the opposite, when you remain calm, when you give space, when you don't chase, you create a completely different emotional response. Now she begins to wonder. She begins to question. She begins to feel the absence of your energy. And that feeling pulls her back in, not because you asked, but because she wants to understand what changed. This is the power of controlled distance. Not distance out of fear, but distance out of discipline. You are not withdrawing to manipulate. You are simply not overextending yourself. You are not over-investing before she earns it. And that restraint communicates value more than any words ever could. Another mistake most men make is over-explaining themselves. They think clarity builds connection. But in early attraction, too much clarity kills intrigue. When you explain every thought, every feeling, every intention, you leave nothing for her to discover. And discovery is a key part of desire. People are drawn to what they have to uncover, not what is immediately available. So instead of explaining everything, you learn to say less. Not in a forced or awkward way, but in a controlled, intentional way. You speak with purpose. You allow silence to exist. You don't rush to fill every gap in conversation, because silence, when held with confidence, creates pressure. And that pressure creates emotional awareness. She starts to feel your presence more deeply because you are not overwhelming her with noise. Seneca wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence on the future." When you are present in your own life, when you are not anxiously dependent on her approval, you become the kind of man others naturally respect. And that respect is visible, it is felt, and it is deeply attractive. There is also something else most men ignore: the power of emotional consistency. Not consistency in attention, but consistency in self. You are not hot and cold. You are not reactive. You are stable. And that stability creates a sense of grounding. But within that stability, you maintain unpredictability in your behavior, not in a chaotic way, but in a way that keeps her engaged. She cannot fully predict how you will respond, and that keeps her attention active. If she knows exactly how you will react every time, there is no need for her to think about you. But if there is just enough unpredictability, just enough variation, her mind stays engaged. And when her mind is engaged, her emotions follow. Now, this does not mean playing games. It means not being overly available. It means having your own life, your own priorities, your own focus. When your life is full, you don't have the time or energy to constantly monitor her behavior. And that alone changes how you show up. You are not waiting for her messages. You are not adjusting your schedule for her convenience. You are living your life, and she either fits into it or she doesn't. That mindset creates a powerful dynamic, because now she is the one trying to align with you, not the other way around. And when she feels that shift, something changes internally. She starts to invest. Not because you asked, but because she feels the need to. You also need to understand the role of emotional control. Most men think showing emotions openly builds attraction. But uncontrolled emotion creates instability, and instability reduces attraction. A woman needs to feel that you can handle pressure, that you can remain calm in uncertainty, that you are not easily shaken. Because if you are easily shaken, she cannot relax into her own emotions around you. This doesn't mean you suppress your feelings. It means you manage them. You don't react impulsively. You observe first. You respond with intention. And that level of control is rare. And because it is rare, it is attractive. There is a deeper layer to this that most men never reach. It's not just about behavior. It's about identity. You are not doing these things to get her. You are doing these things because that is who you are. You are a man who values his time. You are a man who controls his emotions. You are a man who does not chase validation. And when that identity becomes real, your actions become effortless. She will feel that. Not through what you say, but through how you exist, through your presence, through your silence, through your restraint. And that is when something shifts completely. She stops seeing you as just another option. She starts seeing you as different. Not because you tried to be different, but because you refused to be like everyone else. Most men are loud, reactive, and predictable. You become calm, controlled, and selective. And that contrast alone creates attraction. At the end of the day, you don't make her want you by convincing her. You make her want you by creating an environment where her emotions naturally move in your direction. And that environment is built through discipline, restraint, and self-respect. You don't ask for her attention. You don't chase her interest. You don't force connection. You become the kind of man she feels before she understands. And when that happens, she doesn't need to be convinced. She chooses. Without you asking. There is a fundamental truth about attraction that most men never learn. It has nothing to do with the right pickup line or the perfect date. It has to do with the relationship you have with yourself. When a man is desperate for approval, he signals that he doesn't have a solid internal foundation, and that signal is received loud and clear, even if it's never spoken aloud. The woman may not consciously think he lacks self-worth, but she feels it. She feels it in the way he speaks too quickly, in the way he agrees too easily, in the way he laughs too hard at her jokes, in the way he is always available, always ready, always waiting for her to give him something. And that feeling, it pushes her away. Not because she's cruel, but because she's wired to be drawn to strength. And when a man is constantly seeking her validation, he is not showing strength. He is showing need. And need, when it is too visible, repels. This is where the Stoic concept of amor fati becomes relevant. Love of fate. The acceptance that what will be, and that your peace does not depend on the outcome. When you embrace this mindset, you stop clinging to outcomes. You stop trying to force a specific response. You stop needing her to feel a certain way about you. And in that space, you become free. And freedom, as paradoxical as it may sound, is what makes her want to stay close. Because she knows that you are not a prisoner of her approval, that you can walk away, that you can be okay without her, that you are choosing her, not because you need her, but because you want her. And that is a completely different energy. It is the energy of a man who knows his value. And a man who knows his value is a man who cannot be easily controlled. Think about the men you know who are naturally magnetic. What do they have in common? They don't try to impress. They don't try to prove themselves. They simply are. They have a presence that is solid, a calm that is steady, a confidence that is not loud but felt. That confidence comes from one place. They have done the work. They have built a life that has meaning. They have developed skills. They have cultivated interests. They have faced adversity and come out stronger. They have a relationship with themselves that is unshakable because it is not based on what others think. It is based on what they know to be true about themselves. And that internal truth is what others detect. It is what women are drawn to. It is what makes a man unforgettable. Most men spend their entire lives trying to become what they think women want. They change their behavior, their words, even their opinions, hoping to fit a mold. But the moment you do that, you lose the one thing that makes you unique, yourself. And when you lose yourself, you become interchangeable. You become just another man who is trying too hard. And when a woman sees that, she doesn't feel attraction. She feels nothing, because there is nothing there to feel. But when you are yourself, unapologetically, consistently, without needing permission, you become something else. You become a man who is not trying to be chosen, but who is choosing. And that is where the power lies, not in the ability to attract, but in the ability to choose. Because when you are choosing, you are not dependent. And when you are not dependent, you are free. And freedom, more than anything, is what makes you valuable. This is the great paradox of attraction. The less you need someone, the more they want you. The less you try, the more you succeed. The less you reveal, the more they want to discover. It is counterintuitive, and yet it is one of the most consistent patterns in human psychology. It is why the bad boy is so often pursued. Not because he is bad, but because he is unpredictable. Not because he is cruel, but because he is hard to read. Not because he is indifferent, but because he is not desperate. And while you don't need to become a bad boy to attract women, you do need to understand the principle behind it. You need to understand that being too available, too predictable, too easy is not a path to desire. It is a path to indifference. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus also taught, no great thing is created suddenly. This applies to the process of becoming a man who is not easily controlled. It is not something you can fake overnight. It is built over time, through consistency, through self-awareness, through the willingness to sit with discomfort rather than running from it. It is built every time you choose not to react when you want to. Every time you choose to stay grounded when you feel anxious. Every time you choose to be present rather than performing. And as you build this internal strength, it becomes visible. Not because you try to show it, but because you cannot hide it. It becomes part of your presence. And that presence is what will attract women without you having to say a word. So, start with yourself. Not with the next message you send, or the next date you plan, or the next attempt to impress. Start with the relationship you have with yourself. Are you someone you respect? Are you someone you would want to be around? Are you someone who is whole on your own? Because if the answer is no, no amount of strategy will fill that gap. But if the answer is yes, you will not need to chase. You will simply be, and she will come to you. And that, in the end, is the only way attraction ever really works. Not through effort, but through presence. Not through trying, but through being. Not through seeking, but through having. And when you have that, you have everything you need. You have the center that cannot be shaken, the presence that cannot be ignored, the value that cannot be denied. And that is the man she will choose. Not because you tried to make her choose you, but because you made yourself impossible to ignore. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When you cultivate thoughts of purpose, growth, and self-respect, your soul reflects that, and she will see it, she will feel it, and she will be drawn to it. Because in a world of men who are chasing, a man who is centered in himself is a rare and precious thing. Be that man, build that life, and watch how everything changes.